As far as the management information systems, this particular subject is concerned, we have already had a considerable amount of discussion on the various topics in the subject, and some of the students have already submitted their assignments also, and they have made presentations on different topics which are there in the syllabus. So these lectures that I'm planning to take, these video sessions that I'll be organizing for you students, is basically an attempt to just revise the course. So this is basically an attempt to just help you revise the course, and wherever some topics are yet to be discussed or some issues are yet to be sorted out within the topics, we'll be going through those specific issues and we'll be discussing those specific topics. So this is meant to be a very brief series. We are going to start with the first unit, since we have already discussed the fifth unit, wherein we talk about the various case studies where MIS and use of MIS has brought benefits to the organization. So I would not be dealing with unit 5. I would only be talking about the remaining units, and that too in very brief. Fine. So let us move over to the first unit, which is basically the introductory part, and let us understand what are management information systems. See, management information systems are integrated man-machine systems. Now let us try and understand what we mean by this. Basically, management information system comprise both of man as well as machines, which means there would be involvement of people also, and there would be involvement of machines also. For example, you might be having a computer, you might be having a server, you might be having some kind of a storage for the data that you are storing. So these machines would be there, and then we would have people who would be probably designing the management information systems, who would be using them, who would be retrieving information from the management information system. So this is basically an integrated man-machine system. And what is the objective? The objective is to provide information support for the managerial problem solving and decision making. So whenever organization is facing some problem or is facing some contentious issue, they have to make a decision, they have to take a call, what to do, which option to exercise. So if there is a decision making kind of a requirement, or if organization is facing some problem and that has to be resolved, naturally the managers would rely on information to do this. They have always relied on information to do this, even before management information systems used to exist. So they will still be doing that. The only difference would be that earlier they used to rely on information systems which were manual, while now they rely more on information systems which are computerized ones, right? So the whole objective is to make use of the information available to the managers so that they can make the best possible decision, the decision which is most likely to be the best decision. So they have to be enabled to make these kind of decisions for the organization and for that information. So management information systems actually provide the managerial personnel with this kind of information, right? So this is the objective of management information system. As I said, it exists in management of the organization. You know that the higher one individual is in the organizational hierarchy, the higher the level of that particular individual is in the organizational hierarchy, the more crucial decisions that person has to make, and the greater would be the impact of those decisions on the organization. For example, somebody at the lowest level in the organization hierarchy may take a call, but it may not have such kind of significant impact on the organization's fortunes. But on the other hand, if the CEO makes a wrong call, takes a wrong call, or he makes a wrong decision, then it is going to cause a lot of problems to the organization. So basically, the decisions which are taken by the managerial staff, they have great impact on the fortunes of the organization, and that is why these decisions have to be taken thoughtfully and with sufficient amount of background information. And this is what the management information systems do. They provide background information so that the decision making can be easy, can be smooth, and so that the managerial staff finds it easy to manage the organization. Right? Now, to take these kind of decisions, generally the information is collected at the source. So wherever a particular thing is happening, at that particular source the information would be collected. So for each activity the information would be collected at the source. Now what do we mean by this? I'll give an example. For example, if I want to find out how many of the students who have taken admission in BBA they have done their schooling from the Kendriya Vidyalaya, right? If I want to find this out, so naturally I'll have to do what? I'll have to look at some data, but then how would I collect this data? The moment the student gets admission into BBA, his data would be collected, and then this data can be utilized at a later date to find out how many of these students were basically from Kendriya Vidyalaya, or how many of these students were basically from some village in Pithoragarh, or how many of these students were from the commerce stream. So all that information I can cull out from the data that I have collected at source when the student actually came to seek admission. So there and then I collected all this data, and then I'm processing this data at a later date depending on what my requirements are. This is fine. So data will be collected at the source for each activity. Now take example of an organized retail shop wherein they are using handheld devices to keep account of how many items and what all categories of items are getting sold every day. So when would this data be collected? At the source. So whenever this activity is happening, whenever some customer is purchasing the products from that particular retail store, and whenever he is checking out, whenever he is making the payment, at that point of time the data regarding all the products, all the items, all the brands that he has purchased would be collected by a handheld device. You might have seen those handheld devices, right? The barcode scanners. So using those machines, we'll collect all the data at the source, and then we can use it at some later point of time. For example, we can use it at the end of the day to find out how many products got sold and which all brands got sold and what is our inventory level now and how many more items need to be ordered today, or maybe at the end of the month to find out the best selling items or the best selling brands. So the data will have to be collected at the source. However, the use can be at a later point in time. Then before moving on to the objectives, let me give you an example just to make you comprehend better. Now let's assume that supposing, I'll take the same example which I had taken a little while ago. Supposing I want to have all my data regarding the students which are which have got admission to BBA. I want all kind of data. For example, which place do they reside in, whether they are from India or whether they are from outside, maybe a student from Nepal, or which particular community do they belong to, which particular college, which particular school they have had their schooling from, whether they have studied in English medium or Hindi medium, what is their date of birth, what is the name of their parents, and what is an emergency phone number. In case there's an emergency, I can actually contact the parents on that particular number. So I need all this data because I might require them at a later point of time, right? So there are two ways of actually collecting and keeping this data. One is manually, right? So what I'll do, I'll simply record all this data for every single student and I'll keep it in some files and I'll keep it with me. This is one way. Remember this because we'll be discussing this particular example now. So the other method that is available to you is to make use of management information systems. So probably the other method that can be there would be to prepare an Excel file, Microsoft Excel file. Therein I'll have all these fields: name, date of birth, whether English medium or Hindi medium, or maybe Indian citizen or a Nepali citizen, boy or girl, phone number, the parents, their name, their phone numbers, or parental incomes, the family incomes, all this data I'll collect. And when will I collect it? I've said that I'll collect it at the source when the student has come to obtain admission, right? So at that point of time I'll collect this data. So now I've got two ways in which I can collect the data. One is manually, the other one is using the machines or using the management information systems. This is fine. Now we'll try and understand what happens if I use a management information system to collect and store this kind of a data. Number one, reduce cost of operations. Initially, when this data is being collected, yes, it would consume some time and it would require some resources, but however, over a long period of time, it will help you reduce your cost of operations. How? For example, 6 months down the line, I need to find out how many of the students who have taken admission into the BBA program, how many of them are female students belonging to the OBC category. So what will I do? I'll go back to my system, I'll go back to my Excel file which I had prepared. I'll use some tools there, it could be filter, it could be sorting, and then I'll find out, maybe in 5 minutes or 10 minutes I can find out how many students, how many female students are from the OBC category, right? So this way I would be able to reduce my cost of operations, fine. Now naturally, if I'm reducing my cost of operations, what will happen? Don't you think in a way my efficiency is increasing because I'm doing the same amount of work? I'm retrieving the same data that I would have retrieved when I was having a manual system. I'm retrieving the same data. How many females are from the OBC category? But I'm doing it faster. Don't you think I'm more efficient now? Don't you think I'm more productive now? Right? So my productivity has increased, my efficiency has increased. Naturally, this will also help improve the organization's overall prospects in the market, naturally, because now they have to spend less amount of money, less amount of resources, human resources or time or money, and they are still able to do the same amount of work. Their productivity has increased, their efficiency has increased, so ultimately they are going to have better prospects in the market. Now suppose I want to, let's say, reward those students who in class 12th have scored 58 or 60%, but now in BBA they are scoring 70% and above. So those students who have shown an increase of more than 10% in their marks when compared to what they were awarded in class 12th. Supposing I want to make this decision, I want to reward these students. Don't you think I would be able to do it faster here when I have an Excel sheet available with me? And then I can decide whether or not to reward all of them or which ones to reward. Right? So it has basically also improved the speed and quality of my decisions. Why? Because now I have access to more amount of information. Again, supposing the same information is demanded by the central office, the administrative block. What will I do? Don't you think I can simply provide them this information using the database that I have, using the Excel sheet that I have? I can simply share this Excel sheet with them and they can also cross-check the information. So this would increase the seamless integration of the various departments in the organization. So seamless integration would increase, and this would lead to more collaborative behavior. So the various departments would collaborate with each other. This is one more advantage of having a management information system. So collaborative behavior would be increased, right? Now let us say, I'll take now an example. Up till now I was taking an example which was a layman example, but since once you complete your syllabus and a lot of the topics you have already completed, you should be giving examples from the syllabus, from the subject itself, rather than talking about layman examples. So I'll give you an example from the subject itself. We'll be talking about DSS, Decision Support System. It helps the top management take decisions, right? fine, because it provides them all the information that they need. It provides them the models that they might use to take decisions, and it will provide them all the options, all the possible alternatives. Now it is for the management to decide which particular alternative they are going to go for. So it is going to provide them, MIS would basically provide them, or the decision support system would provide them with different alternatives available to them, right? Now, had I tried to do this work manually, don't you think it would have taken more time? It would have increased my cost of operations. It would have reduced my productivity, because I would have taken a lot of time to gather this information and make this decision. And the quality of decision that I would have made would also not have been very good, because I have probably not relied on all the information, or I have not been able to access all the possible information which is there. Again, so all these issues would be there if I am using a manual system. This is fine. So management information systems actually help you achieve these kind of objectives, right? Now let us talk about what happens with the manual information systems. I gave you an example which I began with, the layman example. What if I collect all the data of the students who are getting admission into BBA, and I collect all this data and then I keep them with me as files. So I collect all the data, write down the data on a piece of paper, and then I file it, and this file is ready for me. Now this is my data. Don't you think it would entail paperwork? So this would entail paperwork. And for example, if I want to retrieve some information, if I want to find out 6 students, female students from the OBC category, don't you think trying to retrieve this information is going to be very, very time consuming for me? I will have to look at every single paper, and then I'll have to write it down somewhere else, write down the names of the students who satisfy this criteria, the female students with in the OBC category. So I will have to do what? I will have to write their names in a separate piece of paper. This is going to take a lot of time. And what if I make a mistake while doing this? Suppose instead of writing down the name of a particular student, or suppose I misread a particular word, or instead of writing down the name of the student who is from the OBC category, I take down the name of a male student rather than taking the name of a female student from the OBC category. Because I have doing it manually, I can make such mistakes, which is not possible in the management information systems. When you basically use management information system, and when you want a particular kind of an output, you will query the MIS. You will pose a question to the MIS, and the MIS will give you the accurate response. This may not be the case with a manual information system. The response that you may get may not be accurate. Why? Because of human errors. Again, this is not secure. What if somebody takes away my file in which I've kept all the data? What if somebody takes away my file and then make some changes in the name of the student, or make some changes in the percentage, or make some changes in the categories? So OBC candidate, the name of that student can be changed, or the category can be changed by somebody else also. So these kind of systems are also not secure from these kind of manipulations. And because if they are not secure from these kind of manipulations, information again may not be very accurate. The name of the student has been changed, and by somebody else who got access to this file which I had maintained. Now what will happen? Now if I use this particular file to retrieve the information regarding the female students from OBC category, then probably I'll get a wrong name, because the name has been changed by somebody else. So this could be a problem here in manual information systems. So this could be a problem. On the other hand, what happens in MIS? The authority to change some data is not given to every single individual. It is given only to a few people, and that too after following proper procedure. So whenever some changes are being made, we can find out first thing who made that change, and secondly we can authorize only a few people to make changes. So not every single Tom, Dick and Harry can make changes. Only those people who have been given the permission, who have been given the access to the system, who have been permitted by the system, they only can make change. And then I can also trace the change back to the person who has made the change. So for example, if something has went wrong, I can find out which user actually made this particular change, because he'll be logging in from his own account. Fine. So when he's using the manual information system, he'll be logging in from his own account, and I can find out which particular user from which particular account made this particular change. So now I can pinpoint responsibility, which is not possible with the manual information systems. Again, if this data is too much, think of the data of 200 odd students. Don't you think it would be a very large volume, and it would be a very bulky file that would be required for this? I may require more than one file for this, and again, this is going to cost me a lot of money in retrieving the information. Plus, it's very, very difficult to store this information for future use. On the other hand, if you are using an MIS, then you can always keep this data with you, and you can use it at any point of time in future, and you can very, very easily, using some of the tools which are there, you can very easily retrieve the information which you want. This is fine. So these are the differences between a management information system and a manual information system. Though initially, at the initial stage, you would find that the installation cost, the initial installation cost of the of the management information system is always going to be higher than the manual information systems. However, over a long period of time, you would find that management information systems are far more superior. They are far superior because they provide you right information at the click of a mouse, and they also entail less operational cost. So having a management information system will reduce your workload, though initially at the beginning you may require a lot of resources, a lot of money to install the system, but over a long period of time the MIS would always be better than the manual information systems. Is this fine? Now let us discuss the cost benefit analysis. So when you know that the MIS is always better than the manual information system, right, or the computerized information system is better than the manual information system, what will I do? What will you do? Should you go for an MIS? Does it make sense for a street hawker to start using MIS? Does it make sense for a shopkeeper, very small shopkeeper, a fadwala, to have an MIS? It may not always be a sensible move for this individual. Why? Because for him the cost may be more than the benefits. The cost that he would incur on installing an MIS would be more than the benefits that would accrue from the installation, and in that case he would not, and he should not, go for an MIS. On the other hand, there's a big company which can gain a lot by having a very well functioning MIS. They should certainly go for it, and they should certainly convert from the manual information systems to the computerized information systems into the MIS, right? So basically, whether or not you are going to implement MIS in your organization will depend on whether the benefits are going to be more or whether the cost that you have to incur is going to be more. If the benefits are more, then you go for the implementation. If they are less than the cost that you will incur, you don't do that. You don't go for the implementation. You still depend on the manual information systems, right? And just a simple calculation to find out the relationship between cost and benefit, and the relationship between cost and benefit means which aspect is greater than the other. Is it the benefit that is greater than the cost, or is it the other way around, or are they both equal? So this is what we have to find out, and what we will do, we will try to find out the value of information that we are collecting using MIS. Please understand now this particular formula. So basically we are quantifying the improvement in quality of decision making using the information. So naturally in MIS what is happening, you are using the information, you are making use of the information, you are getting the information, and then you are using it to make a decision, right? And let us try to measure the improvement in the quality of decision just because you have access to richer information, because you have implemented MIS or you are planning to implement MIS. So this is what we are trying to find out, what is the value of information. Now have a look at this particular formula, and as you can see here, this is the value of the information. V2 is value of decision made when the information is there, and V1 is the value of decision made when you didn't have access to this information, right? Likewise, C2 is the cost of decision when you are accessing the information. So cost of decision in terms of the amount that you have to spend, you have to incur to access the information. And C1 is cost of decisions made when the information is not available without the use of information. Now this is the increase in cost because of the MIS, and this the increase in the value of the information because of the MIS, right? So the cost has also increased. Naturally you have probably installed a few systems or installed a few machines or maybe trained some people, so naturally your cost of decision has also increased. However, the value of the decision that you have made has also increased, and this is the value increase in the quality of decision. So this increase in the value of decision, V2 minus V1. Now if this is a positive value, which means basically increase in value delta V is greater than increases in cost, change in cost. So change in value is more than the change in cost. You should go for implementation, you should implement because the benefit is more than the cost. Now this is the cost, and the benefit here has been shown as V. So this is the benefit, right? V should be high enough to justify cost incurred. The basic requirement is that the value should be positive at least, and the higher it is, the better it would be. So we should be high enough to justify cost incurred in setting up MIS. If V is high enough, then only you go for the installation of the MIS or to set up the MIS. Fine. Components of MIS. What are the various components of MIS? These are the various components of MIS. We need hardware resources, which includes machines, which includes data recording media. You may have to keep some storage device to record the data and to keep it secure. So that is what we mean by the hard disk. And computer systems and peripherals, you require various computer systems and peripheral devices. It could be the printer so that you can print out the data that you have obtained, or it could be various other devices. So all these would be required. Then we require software resources, which includes both the system and the operating software. We will be discussing them in the next unit. Then the communication resources, which will connect two computer terminals situated in the same office, located in the same office, or maybe two computer terminals located in the same city but far away from each other, or maybe communication between two different users who are sitting in different offices across the globe. So they are sitting in two different offices on the earth, so in the two different countries on the earth, right? So for them also we need communication resources. We will be talking about VSATs and modems. Then the data resources. Now this is very, very important. Any MIS would not be complete without data resources. What do we mean by this? MIS would basically, and we have said that MIS, what is the first step in using MIS? You need to collect the data first, and this data can be in the form of texts. It can be in the form of numerals 1, 2, 3, 4, and it could be a mix of the two, alphabets plus the numerals, right? And then this particular data would be organized into database, which is organized and processed data, and the knowledge base, which is rules and regulations of the enterprise. And then we need people resources. Now this is the most crucial resource, because all other resources would not be able to work on their own. They would not be able to operate on their own unless we have got the people resources. And who are these people resources? You know some of them are the users, some of them the users who are making use of these MIS. Some of them could be the designer of the database. For example, some could be system analysts. We'll be talking in detail about system analysts later on. Somebody could be system designers, and some of them could be system developers. So some of them would do what? They would be a bridge between the customer requirements and the designer, who only understands technical language, technical words and technical terminology. And designer would be doing what? Based on what the analyst has told him, he would be doing what? He'll be providing the design basically to the developer, who would then be doing the software coding. And this way we'll be able to do what? We'll be able to come up with a particular MIS project successfully, right? So these are people resources, and if the other resources are not there, then people resources are of not great use. ठीक है जी? Okay then, with this I'm coming to the end of this particular session. In the next session we'll be taking up some of the important subsystems of MIS. Thank you very much till then.